Hello. I feel compelled to make a video on a bit of a general issue here. So this is a broad topic I want to talk about, but it's the notion of the way the world is, and the idea of basically there being a control system being put in place which is designed or intended to be a one-size-fits-all system to encourage globalization of this planet. And I think it's a disaster. I think it's incredibly dangerous, even with the best motives in mind. First of all, my problem with it, right on the surface, is that it insults my intelligence. In the past, especially, I'll speak as an Englishman, okay? Everything I grew up with was designed with the expectation that a person had a modicum of intelligence, that they would use their own rational capability to deduce things, and they were able to follow simple instruction and think for themselves. What we're facing nowadays is a disastrous nightmare, and I'll speak from the perspective of an Englishman, okay? And I will state now the difference between, for example, Americans and English people, alright? Americans, for whatever reason, are treated by the system of their country as though they are complete and utter brainless morons. That's how it seems. I mean, I'm going to speak on behalf of the English population. If someone else feels or thinks differently, good for them. It's pretty clear to me that if you compare the way that the British people conduct or have traditionally conducted our business, it is vastly different to the way the American system seems to be resolved or seems to have been created. The way British people see Americans is people who don't have a clue about anything at all outside of North America. They have no clue about anything outside of North America. Now you might argue in their defense, well, that's a big landmass. They've got basically what amounts to 50 countries under a federation, and they don't really need to know about the rest of the world. The problem is that no one in the rest of the world sees the United States of America that way. They see it as a country. Alright? I would suggest that, for example, Canadians, they have an even bigger landmass of country. However, I would argue that the average Canadian, from the British perspective, would be expected to have a much greater understanding about the rest of the world than an American, i.e. a United States of America American, would. We consider people from the United States of America to be completely bereft of knowledge of anything outside their own country. The way that they use the English language is, again, farcical. It's a mess. Now, what's happening now, because these globalist people are mainly they've been raised in the American system, although I would argue they're not all, hardly at the top levels, are they even really American. But the point is, they've been raised in such a system, and they don't know anything different. They don't realise that the heart of everything in the modern world is basically Britain, because all of the countries that are developed outside of Europe have a British background. The ones who are half struggling and falling to pieces, yeah, a lot of them are Spanish in origin or Portuguese. I'm sorry, this is just simply the truth, or even French. The world speaks mainly English for business. If you don't like it, float away somewhere into another reality or whatever, but the truth is this, okay? I'm not stating this in an arrogant way, I'm just stating it as a fact, alright? The British systems, the systems that we put in place, and we're not the only peoples capable of doing this, okay? I would argue that Germans and French and Italians are pretty good in their own way at implementing systems, but the point is the British were more successful at it. It doesn't necessarily mean we're the only way, but it's how it ended up. The point is that the systems we put in place, They originated in the British culture, with the British sentiment behind it. And our sentiment was, we need people to be able to function by using their own brains. Okay? When the United States of America developed into what it is today, for some reason along the way, the decision was made, don't educate these people very much, keep them really stupid. Now, I'm not suggesting that Americans in some anthropological or biological way are just inherently stupid or inferior. They're not. I'm suggesting that the system they have in place shields them from information about the rest of the world. They have no knowledge about the rest of the world. And I would also argue the way that they use English is completely and utterly flawed. If you wrote down what an American person says, often in a sentence, it makes no logical sense at all. It's not even understandable if you write it down. But that's another topic. But the point I'm trying to make is that these globalist people who come from that environment, who are trying to implement their agenda worldwide, are trying to install their flawed mechanisms in the parent country. Now, when I used anything when I was a youngster, there was an expectation of intelligence, common sense, you might say, right? But it wasn't just common sense. It was actually people in our culture, in Britain, there was an expectation of using your own intellect. In the American system, the idea is make it so that people don't have to use their own intellect. Do it all for them, so they stop thinking for themselves. That's not to say they're not stupid, but the idea of being challenged to think for yourself was done away with. Now, if you link that up with the communist sentiment, right, which is not from in the United States, but the idea of worldwide control, if you link that together with that, you've got people who are these globalist people who are trying to reduce everyone to a lowest common denominator whereby they don't think for themselves. And that flies absolutely in the face of the British way of doing things. The reason our empire was so strong is because of discipline and independent thinking. The brilliance of people in our empire was encouraged. There was expectation on people. If you didn't think for yourself, you were considered stupid. You were condemned for it. No one said, oh, poor you. They said, you're an idiot. Get your head out of your backside and start thinking. And that reliance was bred among us for centuries. That wasn't done with the Americans. They do have another kind of self-reliance. And I'm sorry, Americans, I'm sorry. This is, if you have a different way of looking at things, fine. I'm just being honest. What we're seeing in Britain is this globalist nonsense being installed in our country, and I am not alone here. I wholeheartedly reject it. Every bit of software that I use, every bit of equipment that I use, it's baby fed, and it's an insult to my intelligence. The problem with this globalist quasi-communist nonsense is that the intention is to do everything for people so they're controlled. It's not for their benefit or good. It's completely and utterly to control them. People are being dumbed down. It won't work on me and people like me, but the intention is to dumb people down and make them dependent, reliant, controllable morons. I won't have it. I see it coming. A lot of other people see it coming too. Now, I'm not alone. We're not alone in Britain seeing it. A lot of Americans are clued up and are clever. When I say Americans in general, I'm speaking broadly. The way even Americans, I'm sure, look at their own systems and can see that they are completely ruined because of this idea of dumbing people down. I've heard Americans speak about it. Okay, so I'm on strong ground here when I state this. I'm not attacking Americans. I'm saying that their system, the flaws and problems with their system, these globalists are trying to insert and inject into the British culture, and it doesn't fit, and it will not fit, and it will never fit. We are the parent culture of North America. Yes, North America has had other influences over the years, but the parent culture is British. It was British. It's deviated and moved away and evolved, that's true, but the heart of it, the systems of it, were always based upon the idea of thinking for yourself, and it's dissolved. But in Britain, we've still got it, although it's being attacked, and that's what I'm making this video about. The idea of thinking for yourself was always inculcated in us from a very young age. You had to think for yourself, otherwise people would ridicule you, you would be shunned. Nowadays it's, oh, he's not thinking for himself, oh, there must be some weird problem, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not how it works. And it never worked in Britain, and it made us strong. The expectation caused people to meet the challenge, and they met the challenge. A good example of this is comedy. In Britain, comedy leaves the recipient of the comedic presentation to fill in the gaps, and there's the humour. The expectation is intelligence. American humour is basically like spoon feeding a baby. Ha 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 ha, you're supposed to laugh now. Oh, okay, that's funny, is it? Oh, ha ha, I'll laugh at it. Some American humour is occasionally clever, but British humour is unilaterally clever. Because if you, as a Brit, if you go into England and you try and tell a joke and try and make it seem that it's funny, people will look at you as if you are completely retarded. Because you're not using your brain. You're not even expecting the other person to use their brain. That's our culture. So these morons coming in trying to baby feed everyone everything, they're going to receive short shrift. It's not going to work. I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of people here. Intelligent British people who completely and utterly reject this nonsensical New World Order globalist garbage. It will be defeated. It will be destroyed. I'm just stating what's happening at the moment. So no, I don't like what I see. Every time I use something, the idea is it's a one-size-fits-all nonsense. And that goes completely against the idea of people using their own intelligence. Things used to be created for you so that you took ownership of it and control and used it yourself and used your intelligence to make it work. Now it's when you buy something, whatever the product is, some machinery or some functional thing, the impression you get is the person who has designed it, the company producing it, not only thinks that you're stupid, but knows that you're stupid, and even if you tried to use your brain, they will try to interfere with your use of your brain, so that everyone's completely the same in this world. That's the communist idea. Shut them up, physically, forcefully if possible, so that they're all stupid, so that they don't think for themselves. I'm not having that. No way. No way. And that's what these guys think is, they think it's flying. They think, yeah, it's fine, it's working. It's not working, guys. And you're going to reap a big problem. I know that British people won't take it. Some idiotic ones might, but largely we won't. And there is something brewing in Britain. I'll believe it. More and more people I speak to are very, very well aware of exactly what's going on, and it's going to be solved. Not in the silly, stupid, ignorant way, but in the intelligent way. The proper way, the rightful way. The reason I made this video is because I'm using a software package. And every single time you try and do something, if you don't use it in a specific way, it basically is designed so as to treat you like an infantile moron and say, you haven't done it the right way, you're supposed to do it this way. Well, that's not necessary. But the point is, it's designed so as to make you feel stupid. It's insulting to my intelligence. But that's just the thin end of the wedge. There's so much else, there are so many other things that have the same problem nowadays. Systems don't work because people are raised not to use their brains, not to solve problems. They're raised to be obedient morons. Someone talked to me the other day about the problem at Chernobyl, and the reason it became such a problem is because people didn't ask questions. They just blindly followed orders. Well, that's not how Britain runs. We're expected to use our intelligence and take responsibility for ourselves and for others. The expectation of intelligence helps people to grow. If you try and have an expectation that they're stupid, it diminishes everyone's ability to get things done. And that's the problem. This nonsense has to stop. And that's that.